works. Correct. All right, so we are live, hopefully. Um, I'm Billy Lewis, producer, filmmaker, Scare Network. If We're here to talk about the Shanley doc, which we shot many months ago and just now putting out. So if we want to, everyone can kind of introduce themselves. I'm gonna try to go live on Instagram, so there's something I have to do. So you guys talk, but we should be live on the YouTube and Facebook. So if others want to introduce themselves.
Sean, you want to go?
Yeah, Sean should go first.
Oh, it doesn't matter to me. Hey, I'm Sean Austin. I'm part of the Shanley documentary. Really excited to have something created in this very specifically paranormal place. To really dig deep into the depth of the history and all the different experiences that we've had as a whole, as well as the love that we have and why we keep returning to this place. And I think we did a good job of telling that story and really resonating through all the different diversified people that have been there with their own individual experiences. So, really happy for people to start watching this and see what they think.
All right, Stephanie, you want to go?
I'm Stephanie Smith, and I work at the Haunted Shanley Hotel. I've been there for about 4.5 years. I'm a psychic medium and paranormal investigator.
I am Lourdes Gonzalez, and I do Staticom here with Ron, a paranormal investigator since 2016, and that's pretty much it.
And I am the aforementioned Ron, who also does Staticom with Lourdes, who's sitting right here. Started out as a paranormal investigator. We became ITC, or Instrumental Transcommunication Enthusiasts. Resurrected a communication method called direct radio voice, which predates the Ghost Box. Flash forward with our partners, Tony and Sheree Rathman in Arizona. We turned it into what we call Staticom, which is now sourcing the white noise from a generator instead of a radio. And we were fortunate enough to be asked to participate in this film. And so just the opportunity to work with Billy, Stephanie, Chris, Eric, Sean, obviously Kelly and Tracy was awesome to us. But then when we saw what Billy, who's incredibly talented, did with putting the film together, we were really blown away and doubly honored to have been included.
Right.
Yes, you guys added a lot. And I had to mute Chris. He was really loud. So let me unmute him.
Loud, Chris.
Chris, you were like messing everyone else's audio up, so I have to mute you when you're not talking.
Yes. Mute me. What's going on, guys? I'm Chris Mendez. Obviously, you guys seen in the other documentaries that Billy has made. As far as that goes, I mean, we pretty much had pretty good fun time here actually putting this documentary together for you guys. Billy did an amazing job putting this together, and it's going to be great. I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope you guys watch it tonight, and we'll see how that goes. I've had the opportunity to investigate with Ron Lourdes when I first started out. I investigated with Sean plenty of times, and obviously at one point or another, one of the places that we first did, one of the major places that I first did with Ron Lourdes was actually the Shanley Hotel, which ironically enough is actually part of this documentary, which is awesome.
Yeah, that we loved that. It was a coming together to work with people. We had worked with Sean separately before, with Stephanie, obviously Kelly and Tracy at the Shanley. We worked with Chris, like he mentioned before. First time we got to work with Billy and Eric Connor, but that was a huge part of it too. It was a lot of familiarity, and Sean Austin is known to get an EVP now and then, and we always find that exciting. You know, 1 or 2 per second. I think he gets a lot of EVPs. It was fantastic, and also if I can say also that Staticom I mentioned too. We developed that out of direct radio voice with I think they're watching Tony and Sheree Rathman in Arizona. So we are 50% of the Staticom project that is fortunate enough to be shown in this really, really cool, really well-made documentary. But we wanted to also shout out to our partners in Arizona, because without them, it would not be as good as it is now.
Yep. And we forgot Molly.
Oh, yes. And of course,
Molly.
Yeah.
And my
wife is also part of it.
He is actually up in Raleigh on a work trip right now. She wanted to be here and be on, but her work called, but
I know.
yeah,
To me, that one scene in the documentary when it mentioned something about the castle again, she's like, "All right, I'm done." Because I mean, obviously, I think we all know is that Billy, myself, and Eric, we came literally off the heat of doing an exorcism ritual at that castle, went straight to the Shanley Hotel and doing our first night investigating for the documentary. And I think you could see like how exhausted, like I was so drained on that first night. And then, but it was very proficiently resonating throughout the documentary how much the castle was really referenced. It really blew my mind. But I mean, that's kind of like how the Shanley Hotel is, when the place that has a very, energetic doorway or portal that spirits from other places that you've been will come through in this place. And you really, sometimes you might know who you're really communicating with. It could be from anywhere, not just from the actual hotel and the history behind it.
Yeah,
that's right. Because usually when we get responses in the Shanley, we don't usually get demonic stuff or things like that. We usually don't.
yeah.
But when you guys coming from that in prior investigation, I mean, we got it a lot. Castle Demon, it was crazy.
Yeah,
it was
Castle came through a lot. The spirits made this almost a sequel, whether you wanted it or not.
Yeah. No, I really believe that thing from that castle tried to do a hostile takeover of the entire investigation, even during your Staticom. And it wasn't just the castle. There was stuff from the Maleficent documentary coming through there too. And it was just really nasty. It seems like they were all teaming up and just trying to kind of like a supernatural dating app, just swiping all the spirits left and right. Get out of here. I need to speak. And they were just being nasty and yelling and screaming at us and cursing at us and this and that. It's pretty wild. But then you still have the spirits from the Shanley coming through too. That's what's so fascinating about the Shanley, because you can go into different corners of the place and it's like 4 or 5 different locations within one, because they have so many different facets to its energy on a spiritual level. I mean, with the brothel and the ladies of the night, then you got the gentleman's club, and then you got the basement and the history behind the morgue and that stuff. And then the 3rd floor, it's like the abandoned part of the hotel. And you have all these different like areas that they kind of like interact with you differently. It's like, all right, now we're walking to a different, area of different spirits that are going to come forward, just like that 3rd floor room that we were in, where all this weird stuff started to happen. There's something very prevalent, and a lot of people, I'm sure, obviously Stephanie knows that's Adam's room, right? Correctly. And people have been choked and scratched in that room, and it seems to be a very negative, oppressive environment with the types of energies that are here from the Shanley Hotel and other stuff that came through. And I still can't believe it. And obviously, if Chris is still there, I mean, in the documentary, when I asked on EVP, what the hell was that on Chris's face with the pig? And then you hear like a snarl noise in the room with us, not from a device, not from a recorder, nothing of that. And then right after you hear the snarl, like all these dogs start howling and barking outside. And I'm like, the timing of that was just really super eerie. I mean, it was straight up right out of a horror movie, in my opinion, because I've never had like a growl or something, and then you start hearing like dogs howling and stuff right after. I'm like,
that was pretty intense too, because we heard that almost like right next to the two of us, in between the both of us.
So, sorry. Let me.
Barking alone was insane. I mean, especially with that.
So, Chris, hold on a second. Let me. I want to talk about we were having some issues with our streaming service, and I just wanted to address that first. If anyone's watching on Roku, I think we were having a few issues with specifically the new movie, The Shanley, that just came out. So we apologize, but our developers are actually working on it right now, and hopefully we'll have a resolution. If anyone happens to be watching this and to run into issues, we apologize. It is working on desktop computer and phones and the Apple app and everything else. There's just seems to be something going on with the Roku app. So anyways, with that being said, do you guys care if I play the trailer real quick and then we'll come back and talk more on it? Is that cool? All right, so let's play the trailer for people who are watching who may not have seen the trailer so far.
It's one of the only places I could say that I've ever been that is truly haunted.
Oh my God, there it is! Oh my God! This is not human.
This thing is agitated and it wants to retaliate. The original hotel was built in 1845. It was burned to the ground in 1895. In 1906, James Shanley came in and purchased the hotel. There's close to 50 known spirits here. We have the serial killer upstairs.
I used to go home with bruises on me. He would try to choke me all the time.
The most active part of the hotel, in my opinion, is on the 3rd floor.
We are right now on the 3rd floor.
Oh, deep boys.
When you step foot through that front door, you're not sure what's about to happen. It looks like a very old hotel. And I mean, it doesn't look like anything you'd see in this day and age.
Ready?
You come here thinking haunted hotel, and then you look around and you go, yeah, I could see that happen.
I believe the spirits are welcoming, they are funny. They are nasty at times.
Is someone trying to take over the communication?
I truly believe that that evil presence was trying to take over and push back everything else to make sure that its hate, rage, and evil presence was known in every aspect of our investigation there.
There's something unnerving about this picture.
I know, man. It's not a good feeling.
Cast into hell, Satan, and all evil spirits.
This place definitely has that creepy vibe. Just even pulling up to the street, you have that feeling of going back in time, basically.
And I've been to the Shanley Hotel many different times, and it's a different experience every time I go.
I feel like every single time I've gone to the Shanley, I've experienced something paranormal that I can't explain.
I always call the spirits my second family, as dysfunctional as a family they could possibly be.
All right, so there's the trailer, and first off, we kind of, Sean and them just kind of jumped right in, but I just want to say thank you to Kelly, Stephanie, and Tracy. First off, for just allowing us to go and film this and try to shed a little bit of light on the history of the place, and then just kind of bring our take into it, which was a unique take, as Sean was mentioning earlier, with where we had come from, being at this other place in upstate New York, and then coming down and something following us, which is really crazy. And it's really hard to wrap your head around that actually happened while you're in the moment. And when I went back and reviewed everything and was putting this together, then it made more sense of how prevalent whatever those spirits were that followed us down there was. And so I thought that was unique. Along with that, there were a lot of unique things that happened, throughout the thing. But yeah, anyways, so Kelly, if you're watching, thank you. And I hope we did your place justice, and I hope a lot of people can watch this and continue to keep going there and getting paranormal evidence. I think it's really cool. So
I mean, and also Ron and Lourdes, I really thought it was a great idea to bring you guys along. You said before, we've been there together and we've got some really cool stuff. And then you also have this unique method of ITC that you guys have been really progressing and innovating, which really brought a whole nother, piece to this unique puzzle of the Shanley Hotel and all the stuff that was coming through. And like you had said during the documentary, the multifaceted methodology of the different types of equipment that we're using, and we're getting the same things on everything, including your device, just constantly, consistently saying the same stuff so clearly. And just listen to that thing, and all these spirits come through from the Shanley and all the other places, the castle and God knows what else. I mean, they were calling us out and stuff like that. It's so fascinating. And especially we were only there for a couple of days and we had so much stuff happen on top of the evidence that we put on there from our past experience with some of us on the documentary. I mean, so many people have been to the Shanley Hotel and we all kind of explain the same thing. We love this place. We keep coming back, and it's different every time you go. You can go there and it could be a completely new experience and not just the same old thing that can happen. Kelly's done such a good job with the place and really bringing that love and passion for the place and really allowing a safe environment for people to come there and have a supernatural experience. Because there's no other place like that. It's, you can go to haunted hotels and stuff, but you really feel like you have the full reign of the actual hotel as a whole, rather than just going to a haunted hotel and staying in one room. And that's pretty much all you got. I mean, this place is literally made for paranormal investigation, where you can sit there and go in your room and then, wander around the hotel and at the abandoned area in the basement. And now they have the beautiful seance room that they had created, and then give all that love there to have, like I said, it's multi-characterizations to the different parts of the place, which is just a very unique experience. And I think for many of the people that go there and want to always return.
Yeah, and before Ron and Lourdes talk, I just want to say, Sean had talked about you guys coming and invite you, and again, my sincere gratitude for you guys taking your time out to come and be a part of it. But before you guys talk about your part in it, I guess I didn't really wrap my head around exactly what your method was and all that. So it was really cool right in the moment to actually see how that was happening and the responses that were coming through. And I think it added a lot to the documentary for several reasons. It backed up a lot of other evidence that we got and validated a lot of other stuff. So I think it brought definitely a unique twist to everything. So again, thank you guys. And that was awesome.
Thank you for having us and for the kind words. I mean, we enjoyed working with you guys. Is great. I mean, the Shanley, when I'm in the Shanley, I feel like I'm home. I love the Shanley, and it does have its many different aspects to it when you go, but it's just an amazing place to be. And Sean, actually, not to give too much away, one of my favorite parts of the investigation was when your father came through. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Father or dad protection and stuff like that. And when we asked who you're protecting from, it's a demon or something like that. And that's been happening outside of the hotel too. Like my dad's been coming through like lately and been having stuff. I mean, I was just in my car driving back from somewhere a few days ago and literally heard my dad scream out my name in the car. And I literally turned down the music and like, Dad, I freaking just heard you, like literally. So yeah, I mean, obviously it's all good to get all scared with all this creepy stuff, but like all in all, I mean, if there's evil, that means that there's good. And then, we all know that, we're all, delved into the paranormal. We know that there's something after death. There's something, and we live on. Our energy lives forever. And there's good and bad that comes with every aspect of the physical plane and especially the spiritual plane. But, in the end, light always conquers darkness, and it's always very comforting to know, and lucky for people like ourselves that are involved in the paranormal field to know this information and believe in it and know that there's something truly to all this phenomena that goes on. Of course, to have some sort of your loved ones come through and validate protection and good positive energy around that is always, it never gets old, obviously.
So let me I want to play a quick clip, and then I want Ron and them to talk about their methods. This will kind of show people who don't know what Ron and Lourdes do with the Staticom. It's only like a 15-second clip from the actual.
We don't even know what we do, so this is good for us too.
But this is like a whole string of answers. I think, Ron, you had actually put this on your YouTube months ago, and Chris told me about it, and I didn't even realize it. But then Sean came in and listened to it, and he heard a couple of words different than what you had interpreted. So anyways, it's all up for interpretation. Let's watch this and then we'll talk.
Is there any entities here that are frightened of Sean? Whoa.
What'd you hear?
I heard Satan, he messed with Chris.
So Sean, when he was listening to it the first time, I thought it said Chris, but he said get Christ out of here.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it could be interpreted either way.
It could. So two things. One, just to go back to what Sean said when he mentioned all the diversity of experience that you have at the Shanley, absolutely true. But the one thing that's not changed, he also mentioned, is between Kelly, Tracy, Stephanie, the way you get treated in the personal experience you have as a customer, as an investigator, a guest, whatever, that part never changes. That part's always top shelf. And that's why for us, living 90 minutes away, it is a home for us.
Yep.
As for the film, we have a ton of respect for all you guys. That was part of the reason we were honored to be a part of it. When we watched the screener version of it, you never know when you do something sometimes if something's going to be represented differently, or how we were represented and how what we do was represented was really done with so much respect. It was done with consideration for showing what it is and how it works, which is for us important. And again, to go back, and I had said this at least once or twice, one of the things that was really cool is I think I'm credited on screen. It's creator of Staticom, and that's why I wanted to mention, because this was, I guess at the time we had just taken the name on, but Staticom is the name that actually came from Tony and Sheree Rathman out in Arizona, who we partnered with. And we did that. And I'll explain the method a little bit if you want to, but we did that name change because we started sourcing the white noise, the pure white noise we were using, from a generator instead of a radio. Prior, it was using something called direct radio voice. In the radio, we figured we have to change the name. And then Tony Rathman came out with he had acquired the name and permission to use for Staticom. I can tell you a quick, really odd story. We watched Tony on a podcast like a week or so ago. This is very recent. And then afterwards, I was looking at our YouTube. I said, let's watch some of the old stuff we recorded when we started. So we watched that video 4 years ago and change. And she hears something. It's a 5-minute clip. She waits for it to finish. She goes, go back to the first minute. And we go back. I think I sent this to Sean this week. And a voice comes through and says Staticom. We hadn't used the name, or we hadn't taken the name on until 3.5 years after that. We barely knew, like we knew of the Rathmans in Arizona, but we didn't really know each other. And they're the ones that brought the name in. So something or somebody came through who recognized pure white noise for communication similar to what we were doing, because of the name we found out was conceived 10, 12 years ago. So 4 years prior, 3.5 years before we adopted the name, a recording of direct radio voice with just a radio and a little reverb said Staticom.
Yep, it was prior the software and the filtering. It was the boombox with white noise in a station, barren of any emissions, and a portal.
Right.
That's it. And Staticom came through. We were shocked.
There's your non-locality, but the same way you had spirits and activity that was at that castle that was intense, that seemed to follow you guys and come through. This was somebody gave us a name that was conceived before we even had it, but it was previously conceived. What we do for the Cliff Notes version of it, Staticom, is we use pure white noise from a generator. So it's not a radio. It can't receive or record. We filter it in real time, which is everything people do with audio capture in the paranormal, but instead of doing it in review, we do it in the moment of contact so we can understand what comes through and have dialogue, which clearly we did with you guys at the Shanley. And then the first thing that the four of us did in ITC had never been done before is we took the flow of live white noise and slowed that down in real time to make the things that come in way too fast for us to detect and faster than a human vocal tract can speak intelligible. That's Staticom. Pure white noise, filtered in real time, slowed down in real time, comes out in real time. And it performed, thankfully, because we were like, I hope it works good this time, because we didn't want to disappoint Sean and yourself and Chris and Eric and of course the Shanley.
And so when you hear different, like you said, Sean interpreted something different than we did. And that's still, the voices shouldn't be there at all. There's no data in white noise.
Right. Yeah.
So, when people sometimes try to say, if people hear different things, that it's not a voice, but we sometimes misunderstand each other. So if I misunderstand Stephanie and she says Trick and I heard Rick, that doesn't mean that she didn't speak a word.
Right.
So those voices shouldn't be there at all, period.
That's why when I was editing it, like I really, well, first off, you guys gave amazing sit-down interviews, so it really accompanied the process and the evidence we got. But I really wanted to explain to the audience who didn't really understand what you just said about how there should be no voices there. And I hope that people will really take note of the way you guys explain it, just to educate them a little bit of what they're hearing, throughout. So.
No, I appreciate the opportunity to explain it. It's new to people. The concept of a box and a sweeping radio is still pretty much synonymous with ITC for most ghost hunters or people in the paranormal field. What we tried to do with this method was, and this is again with the help and work of Tony and Sheree Rathman, is to vet it for authenticity, because we don't want to fool ourselves, right? And we looked at what are the two things ITC gets slammed with. You're getting radio bleed through. You're getting broadcasts. Now we took out the radio. The only other thing they'll say is that you're discerning patterns in the white noise, because white noise is random and you can discern patterns in randomness. So first of all, when they say that, we looked at it and go, well, that's appealing to our intellect, because discerning patterns with sound is how we communicate. That's phonemes and phonetics coming together in words and phrases with context. That's communication. So that doesn't debunk it. And white noise is not fundamentally random. There's electromagnetic fields, quantum fields, charged ion particles from the sun. There's a variety of things that are happening. Deterministic, we think, because it's intentional communication that we can identify. So it's not random. Random is a word that people in the paranormal will use when they can't measure or calculate something. It's an empty drawer. So it's not random, the white noise. What it is it's computationally irreducible. It can't be measured at the time, but it is not haphazardly producing what sounds like words, not at that level. And Sean heard a lot, so I mean that's
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, when you're in an open room and there's so many different noises, your ears have to aim at certain little bits and pieces of the noise. And I think also, like, I think my ear's been pretty trained well because I'm like a musician. So when I would do productions of a song, like there's so many intricate parts and layers to like a production of a song that it's not just one resonant sound that's coming out. It has like 20 different things going on. So you kind of have to use your ear like kind of like an eyeball, like you're looking at one object in a session of like 20 items. So if you're able to do that, you can kind of aim it at one line of audio, and that's how you can kind of like pick out some of the stuff that you're hearing. But when I was reviewing that for Billy, when going over that part, I was like having the headphones on and not just an open room, and I definitely heard Christ there for that one part, and it totally made sense. Because I really think it was the castle thing, like, because they had said, like, you changed the castle, get Christ out of here. I think they were saying, get it out of where this place was. I think it was referring to the castle personally.
It makes sense contextually. It makes sense with the other stuff that came through. And that's sometimes happens when we speak. It's a dropped sound, right? You could sometimes people say, get out of here, out of. They don't say out of, out of. You mean we can lose sounds and you're still conveying the message. So I think you're right. When we watched it, it didn't sound to me like it was wrong. When I saw what was annotated on the screen,
when it said Satan mess with Chris, that totally sounded like Chris, and that can contextually make sense too because the scratch on his neck, because the whole image thing that showed up on him as he was getting scratched on the third floor of the Shanley, that totally made sense.
You guys did have really attuned ears, though. You, Chris, and Eric, for not sitting through nearly as much white noise BS as we do, and that's not bragging. Listening to white noise is not freaking fun.
Yeah, because you get multiple voices coming through, and you got to be able to like pick out one that you think is the clearest for you and concentrate on that. And that's hard to do when there's other voices coming through. So
yeah, you guys were catching a lot in real time, and then a lot of time, at least 2 or 3 of you were hitting the same things you were hearing at the same time, which to me that's like a visual dream. To see multiple confirmations from people in the same room at the same time. So, not to mention, it's not bad having it on that 85-inch TV Kelly's got in that seance room. She's lucky I even left that place. I should be there watching cartoons right now. It's Friday.
Yeah, it was really weird too when right when Eric hooked up his gateway machine and it said the word static comm that came through. I think that was the first thing that came through. I thought that was really odd.
That was crazy.
He spoke very kindly about what we do in the documentary, which we appreciated. He's a brilliant dude, and that was a really cool idea to take his gateway and have that as the external speaker, as the last pass before you hear the sound. And then the first thing that the system produces is the word staticom. And he just looked at me.
We all was like, "What?"
Yeah. When we were down in the basement too, like I hooked up the Echovox to the gateway, and then I tried that, and then we got Rich Hotel and Shanley. When I asked what's the name of the hotel, which actually I think Stephanie caught the Rich Hotel when listening back.
She was the only one that caught it.
Yeah. So I mean, to say those two things in succession is pretty wild. It's like we were getting a lot of validation. It was just all over the place, just to be there for 2 days. And then the whole thing on the third floor. I mean, it was just the EVPs. I mean, it was saying castle so clearly, so many times, in so many different methods.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
Right.
I mean, even when we were down in the basement, it said Jane. I mean, not once did we hear that the owner's wife's name in the castle for all the times that I've been there, not freaking once. And it was like, it's Jane. Like, yeah, okay. Don't think so. Like this thing was so freaking nasty. And then, I mean, the third floor, I mean, every time I said, dude, the evil thing's back in the freaking room with us, that stick figure just showed up like right afterwards.
Oh my God, the stick figure was crazy too.
Yeah, it was crawling on the freaking wall, and it was totally like pointing at me and Chris. It was like I don't know what the hell was going on with that, but that was pretty
Yeah.
wild.
So there's so much other stuff I want to talk to. Let me play one more clip, Kelly. And this blew my mind because let me just play it.
During
It's on
interview.
Yeah,
yeah,
and I
wild as hell.
crazy. So let me play this, and then we'll talk about this.
I'm not too familiar with a lot of them other than I know that there is ley lines that run through here. I know that there's a lot of quartz. I know that there is ley lines that run through here.
Okay, so that kind of freaked me out because so when I edit, I try to cut out a lot of like dead space. If somebody's saying a soundbite and they pause for a second or two, I try to cut that dead space out and I'll cover it up with B-roll or whatever. I was actually about to cut that part out because she just paused for just a split second and I was going to cut it out, cover it up. And then I heard that, and how I know that that is a legit thing. You can see her microphone coming out of her. So I didn't. So I get audio from the camera too, but I had cut that out, and so that was the only audio coming from her, and you clearly hear no for whatever reason. So my question is, so again, never realized that had happened until I started editing, and then I heard that and I was like, oh man, that's really freaky. So my question for Stephanie, and you guys can ask too since you've been there, and then I got Scott Davis, he gave us a piece of his evidence where he got the same thing down in the basement. But is that pretty common to get those kind of disembodied voices like that?
It is hugely common. We hear disembodied all the time, and it's lately, I don't know what the reasoning is, but it's like the activity is picked up. Just a couple of months ago, Kelly and I had a group of people that were in the seance room. We were setting up to do our first investigation of the night, and I'm setting up a few things. She's over across the room, and the guests are all sitting down. And what we heard was, it sounded like a little girl like poking her head right into the front door of the seance room, and she goes, "Hello?" And she kind of asked it like it was a question. And it took me a minute to realize what I just heard, because I was not expecting that. And I looked at the guests and I'm like, you guys didn't just say anything. They're off to my right, the door's to my left. And this clearly came from my left. And they're like, no, we didn't, but we were recording. And Kelly, who's across the room, she's like, wait a second, that wasn't any of you guys? And we're all like, no, that was not us. And so one of the people that was recording it just on the voice memos on their phone, they played it back, and sure enough, you hear this little girl questioning, hello? And the way I took it, it used to be the kitchen and dining room area. Children were not allowed to just come in here willy-nilly and play. And so she's kind of asking if it's okay to come in. You know, is anybody in here? Am I allowed to come in? Can I get a snack? That sort of thing. So it was pretty neat, but we do get things like that all the time.
Yeah, Anthony Simonelli, who's watching now. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
Okay, so it's interesting you guys mentioned that, because right before Sean and I ended up getting the growl up on the third
It's
floor.
on the documentary, yeah.
Yeah, we ended up getting what was a little kid's voice coming through. It sounded like a little girl, exactly like a little girl.
Yeah,
on the third floor.
what did it say, Chris?
I believe it was the same daddy or
No,
hold
on 1 second, and you'll hear what it said. Hold on.
Said help. What was that? Said help.
When you hear something that
Yeah.
Yeah, so I bumped the audio up, obviously, but Sean and Chris, you guys heard it with your own ears.
Yeah, that was audible, disembodied voice.
Well, there was some static. Yeah, there was some static beforehand, and then you hear help, like low help, just crazy. Again, crazy.
So that's the one that's when Sean and I were sitting there. Also, there was another one when Eric and I were upstairs, which I believe was also saying the like hey daddy, or where's daddy, or something along those lines.
Oh.
Which is right on top of the steps as well. But that's interesting. I completely forgot all about that.
But that was two disembodied voices that did not come from any device in a row. The little girl yelling help, and then I asked the question on EVP about what the hell was that on Chris's face in that image, and then you hear the snarl, and then the dogs start howling and barking outside. That was all in a row. Like that was, I think it was around like 6:30 at night.
Yeah, so it was still daylight out.
Yeah, but yeah, that was pretty wild.
Wow.
I love audible disembodied voices. That's been happening a lot more to me lately. I've talked about it on social media. It's really, I love that because we have to use equipment typically to hear the voices of spirits because the frequencies they speak on, only these equipments can pick up on those frequencies. So, for the most part, that doesn't happen but lately for me, it's like, I'm just hearing stuff like a lot. And I'm sure, like Stephanie said, like I'm sure that's happening. I think it's happening across the board in some places. Just like people are hearing more stuff. The veil could be just more lifted. People are acknowledging the spirit world more, and there's a lot of crazy, cataclysmic, crazy stuff going on this planet right now. So we don't know what's creating the paranormal activity to increase or decrease. I do have a lot of theories about paranormal activity. I think the moon's very related to the activity because water is a conduit to paranormal energy. Most of the planet's water, and you think about what the moon does to the water and the tides. That's really could be a scientific answer of why one place or one location could be so active one night and another night you can hear the crickets. It's so quiet. I mean, why is that? There's some sort of answer to why the energy behind the spiritual world is able to be interacting with our physical world more so on certain dates than others. There's got to be some sort of answer. And to me, it really makes sense that the moon is definitely connected to that. When I first started investigating the paranormal, I was researching that, and there's a lot of paranormal researchers that they had a whole thing about they believe that 3 days before a new moon and 3 days after a new moon or a full moon are the most prevalent paranormal type of nights to go out on. And I would experiment. I'd look at the moon calendar and I'd go out to a cemetery when I first started. I'm like, and more stuff would actually be happening on those days. So if you're going out there, you want to do an investigation, you may want to pay attention to experiment with the moon calendar and see if there's any sort of, different energy or investigation evidence that you may get or attain.
Yeah. Although the Shanley, even on a slow night, you still get something. You usually get something.
Yeah.
That old wives' tale too, where they say, watch out if you go out on a full moon because the crickets come out. Well, it's absolutely true for the dead and the living.
Yeah, and I love that, and we all have different backgrounds and stuff, and I love that, and this is what we like working with Sean so much too, is that he takes an analytical approach. He looks at the science behind what might be causing stuff. We have, in recent time with Tony and Sri Rathman, we have adopted a philosophy of mind as a substrate for how we think paranormal stuff is all actually quite normal. It's nature doing what it does, and it would explain a lot too. This is something we've looked into with that. The physical world is not actually physical. It's just how it represents itself to us because we have sensory input. We have sensory input, just like an airplane has a dashboard with dials that measures everything, but it doesn't represent. It represents what's going on outside the plane through sensors, but it's not the sky in and of itself. And the pilot knows that. He never mistakes the dashboard for the sky. So we have limited sight with, vision and hearing, the spectrum of sound. We have been studying what's called analytic idealism. Under that idea, reality is all mental. It's all mentation, mental processes, not mine, not yours, but mind at large, like a universal phenomenal consciousness we're all part of. And if you look at it from that perspective, then a lot of times what's happening is just mental stuff is mixing with mental stuff. The same way if somebody's angry in the room and you can sense it. Now, when you talk about people like Sean and Stephanie or Tracy who have abilities, sometimes you have your boundaries a little more permeable, perhaps, and you're more sensitive. You pick up on more stuff that's from outside your dissociative boundary, so to speak. But just as another concept behind reality, we think if this is all mental processes, it allows for all that stuff to come through, and it doesn't defy any of the laws of science that we're supposed to adhere to.
Right.
No, we just haven't come up with the definitive answer of how it's happening. That's why they want to dismiss it because they don't have an answer for it because they're the all-knowing. But when it comes to everything, is like we're energy within our body, so everything has energy. So when something comes into a room that's energy based, and people like myself, Stephanie, or anyone who's like sensitive, you can feel the change of the environment. And that's what I was feeling up on the third floor. It's like, oh, okay, and I'm starting to feel like pressure on my chest, and I'm getting like clairvoyant image of something creepy. And I'm like, and I'm hearing demon in my head. Like something's telling me like something's in the room, and like my body's reacting. And I'm hearing the clairsentience, and then the clairvoyance from the image, and then the clairaudience where something's telling me. So I have a combination of all that. And then you have some sort of scientific equipment that we're using, like that SLS cam, that's just, you're just lining up all the pieces of the puzzle to really validate, because people who are sensitive, it's just your own piece of equipment. I mean, we all have those abilities, whether they're dormant there or they're very prevalent, they are there. That's who we are as a core. And whether or not they come out in the forefront of your life in the physical plane, that's dependent. I mean, this stuff didn't really happen to me. I mean, obviously there's signs when I was younger, but when I start to engage and open myself up to the possibility of the spirit world and accepting everything as a possibility, then it was like a flip of the switch and things started happening all the time. I really do believe that, in law of attraction as well, when it comes to energy. And I think that spirits will reciprocate with you if there's a genuine intention of respect, and also an opening of realization that you are speaking to something. This isn't just some sort of, going to an amusement park or something like that. I mean, this is real stuff. And just like you said, I mean, it's not like to me, it's like, it's not a matter of whether or not ghosts are real or not. I mean, like you said, it's a part of my daily life. I mean,
right. Well, that's the point. Science is not in the business of defining reality. The science is in the business of predicting and modeling behavior and what it might do, what it won't do, but it doesn't tell you what reality or nature is. And the one fundamental thing that we all know, nature's one given, is experience. So when you talk about those feelings and those sensations and what you're picking up on, that's experience. And you can't measure that. You cannot deduce from the constituent parts of what it is to feel fear or anger or love. You can't deduce from the constituent parts what it is, what comprises that, because it's an experience. It's not quantitative, it's qualitative. And that's where science runs thin. It can't measure that stuff.
Right, because they're working under physicalism, and under physicalism, it doesn't allow for the paranormal. It doesn't. It has the hard problem of consciousness, right? So, but under analytic idealism, it allows for what we know here. It doesn't contradict anything, and it also allows for the paranormal to be normal.
Yeah.
So,
well, it has to do with quantum physics, and the reason why they hate it so much, because it takes the natural laws of physics and throws it out the window, and everything's backwards and forwards, and they don't even want to deal with that. It doesn't even make sense to them. That's why it's like no. You know what I mean?
It does. Yeah, it does throw a loop in it too, because they're talking about unified field theory. Like there's 11 known quantum fields. Even particles years ago have been determined that particles are not actually a thing. It's not a little ball of a thing. Particle is just a behavior of the field. The same way. To quote Dr. Bernardo Castro, the same way a ripple on a lake is, even though it has height, weight, breadth, distance, you can measure the speed, but it's not a thing. It is nothing to it but the lake. It's a behavior of the field of subjectivity. The lake is doing something. It's not its own thing. You can't take the ripple off the lake and go home with it. So when you're talking about quantum fields and stuff like that, that's exactly it. And when you sense these things, those are behaviors of the field that you're observing as an observer. You're experiencing it. So we love this thing because everything you've quoted or said that you do, or that Stephanie does, or people who have abilities do, it is completely natural. It doesn't require some grandiose explanation to appease a physicist, because it doesn't need to.
Right.
But see, that's why we get a lot of like non-believers too, because not everybody is blessed to have these gifts, and not everybody that has gifts works on it enough to bring it forward as much as we have had to work to do this. So they're like, well, if I can't sense it, then that means you must be wrong.
Right.
So it's not you can measure in any shape or form, and it's not something we can prove or disprove. It's our own experiences that we're getting.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Even like I've thought about, like, and obviously I know there's always a debate about, orbs and stuff like that, but I'm a firm believer. I know that like there are balls of light, and there's no question of it. And I've done experiments since the beginning. Like my first year investigating the paranormal, there's a video like I took, like, I wanted to prove that like balls of light are real. Like, dust can't intelligently do what you asked it to do. So I would take my hand and can you fly your ball of light through my hand? I don't know if you guys ever saw it, but I saw it through my freaking hand
right out of command.
Mm-hmm.
And even another time, like I was at a haunted opera house in Connecticut, and they took 3 pictures. And I'm like, can you float your orbs above balls of light above my hand? And on the 3rd picture, nothing was there on the first 2 pictures. 3 perfect spherical shapes were above my hand. Experiments like that. But, another fascinating, like, theory, it's just interesting to me. And I'm thinking about God and like the creation of us and like the spiritual connections of everything. Think about the atoms inside your body. Like they're all spherical, these tiny little atoms, but like, what if they're like spiritual, like atoms? It's like a spiritual cell, basically our energy. It's like the same concept. And it was probably created also because it was so easy for people to sit there and hide, like camouflage in these cameras, that, oh, it's just that. Like they could sit there so easily and hide behind these normal pictures that are taken all the time, because you really can't tell if it's dust or spiritual energy unless you can actually interact with it and have it do something intelligent. Then we just can't. People send me videos all the time. Is that a spirit? I'm like, hey, it could be, but like, unless it defies gravity or has an intelligence to its path, then you can define it as one or two things. It's either a bug or it's an anomalous event. It's some sort of manifestation. But I mean, a lot of these pictures and stuff, they still could be spirits. But I mean, it's fascinating to wonder why most of these spirits do come in the shape of a spherical shape. And then all of a sudden you get these other ones that kind of manifest and project into other shapes, lines or mists and all this other stuff. It's I guess all the different types of shapes these things can go into. I don't know, it's pretty fascinating. And it's always going to be fascinating with how these things manifest.
Well, the orbs on camera either. I've seen it with my eyes at the Shanley. I had a guest. She and I heard things from the quarters, and we're sitting like right at the fireplace. So both of us kind of heads around the fireplace to see what was going on. She saw a woman with a bun in her hair go from the quarters and walk across the hall towards the scrying mirror. I didn't see a woman. I saw a huge ball of light. So this was not on a camera. This is just something that I saw. It was a huge ball of light, but it did the same from the gentleman's quarters over into the scrying. We saw it at the exact time. How do you explain something like that?
I see balls of light with my own eyes too, many times. So it's not just, on pictures too. And then I'll say, what did I just see? And then, or I'll see a shadow figure and I'm like, I just saw a shadow. And I'll be like, what did I just see? And then it'll come through the spirit box. Like, you saw a shadow, like right after that, obviously looking for validation, stuff like that. And also, like the famous story, why is there so many stories of the lady in white all over the place? In my interpretation of that too, is that, first of all, most spirits are not innovative enough to actually be able to project into an actual full apparition of their manifestation of what they once looked like. But if they are, there might be different levels of them. Most of them probably only can be some sort of grayish, whitish color. They can't project in a color. So that could actually present the appearance of someone always being dressed in white if it's a dress. And that may be the reason why everyone sees this lady in white, because it's not a colored projection. It's a grayish, whitish projection, like we see all these balls of light that are typically that color when we capture it on camera.
Yeah, I think it's also an archetype of reality that's something that would be identifiable, that people would identify with upon seeing it, for other reasons, of course, that you just explained too. But I think it has to do with being in the mind at large and nature as a mental process. I think it's an archetype that's that we would identify with.
I thought perhaps it could be also if someone is more like what's the word I'm looking for? Porous?
Yeah.
Someone could be more porous where they can actually see the image as if someone else may see a ball of light at the moment,
Right. And by porous
too, yeah.
Yeah, by porous,
either how they want you to see them or your own abilities, or sometimes could be
one of the two, or a combination. But
like the lady, I've seen that one time, and that was at Hinsdale House, my first time there. And what I saw was a woman in a white nightgown. And so now I'm thinking probably a lot of these lady in whites are probably just ladies that were in their nightgown.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously I'm not a paranormal investigator, I'm a filmmaker, but we get so many comments on the Scare Network, on different social media channels, YouTube and Facebook and other places, when we post stuff like that, people just completely discrediting it. But it makes me think about the best one I feel like we ever got. Sean was the one sitting right in front of the Amityville house that came through the car and just, I mean, huge ball. And then it turned his camera off.
Yeah.
Luckily his camera saved the clip, but
I mean,
it like stopped his recording.
This thing dart around the car and come through the windshield. So it's not just something that's flying in a room. Like you see it outside and it comes.
And it was like 35 degrees outside too.
35 degrees, no bugs outside. It's in the winter. And then it flies around all around the car and me, and then my camera just shuts it off. It shuts it off.
For some reason, they love doing that because we had an experience there too. Remember in the camera, it was this big ball of light, and it came straight at the camera, and then the camera shut off.
There's a book called The Orb Project that Bobby Gallo recommended to us. One of the people who wrote it was a NASA scientist. I haven't read the whole thing; I just started, but it's an interesting thing to look into because I think they get dismissed a lot without people realizing what some of the possibilities, which Sean kind of laid out here, what some of those possibilities are. And I don't know, Bill, if you were talking about that people dismiss the orbs or the lady in white thing.
The orbs.
Because it's even when they dismiss stuff too, that's when because you have a conscious experience when you see something like that, or when Stephanie sees something like that. Yeah. And then one of the ways that they'll try to dismiss it is they'll say, "Oh, you're just hallucinating." But what is a hallucination? It's a conscious experience. So by saying that, they're denying the very statement they're trying to make. That you experienced it.
Well, people who are like cynical and that skeptical, they're just like defense lawyers for rationality. So they're just going to sit there and tell you all the rational reasons why you saw what you saw.
Right.
Especially these days, I always tell anyone, you want to know that it's truly paranormal and unexplained, is that you're there firsthand and experience this, and you have no rational explanation for it. That's why people like ourselves go out and do what we do, and we're so down the rabbit hole and passionate about this stuff because we know that there's an answer to the thing that we don't have an answer for. These events are taking place, and it's unexplained phenomena, and that's why we do what we do. But these days, they could sit there from the outside and watch. Unfortunately, there's plenty of people that go there and fabricate shit just for the sake of money and attention. Right. But this stuff really does happen.
Absolutely.
You have to be open to it. I mean, we can sit there for 8 hours in one night. I mean, the amount of times that I've seen something fly, physical, pick up and hit, and it's not many times over the amount of years that I've investigated, over 14 years now. I mean, you got to sit there for a long time and be really patient going out there investigating 8 hours a night, like constantly to have the chance to really experience something wild. I mean, it does happen. It has happened to me. Again, I mean, when it comes to the Shanley Hotel, it's like, you could experience anything. You never know if you go there one night.
So the philosophy that I take, and I've taken with Scare Network and the paranormal specifically, I mean, we do true crime and monster and horror stuff too, but with the paranormal, the philosophy that we've taken as far as evidence and locations and I've said this many times in other interviews, but just for someone who may not know, it's like, we go to these locations that are supposedly haunted and we gather evidence and we try to tell the story the best we can about the location based off the history of what we can learn, which Kelly and Stephanie and them were great at educating us on that. And then, a lot of times we hope that our evidence backs up the history if we got good history on the place, and then we put it out to the public and let people make their own assertions from what we did. We're not, me specifically, I'm not trying to convince someone whether ghosts are real or paranormal is real or not. I'm just putting out there the story of what we developed while we were there and gathered, and then people can make their own assertions. So if people want to be nasty and say that you're faking it and this and that, I don't care. I mean, I know what we captured, what we did, the interviews, the history and all that, and we meshed it all together. So I'm not trying to convince someone one way or the other. I'm just trying to present what we got, and then you can,
Yeah, and nor should you too. But one of the byproducts of the advanced technology that we have for all the stuff that we do is that there's a higher suspicious feeling with regards to fraudulence. People think you have an easier ability to do it. That's just one of that. That's the baby with the bathwater. You got to take it. People aren't there to see it happen. They don't trust it. And again, this is what I love about how Sean looked at this stuff too, because you have to have the open mind in the way he described it. But it's also good to know that when you talk about the people that are cynical, when they say with rational thought and with reason that they'll rule things out, rational thought and reason are nothing more than a series of axioms, which are commonly just accepted beliefs with no questioning. You just take them at face value without questioning whether or not there's a validity to it. Is this empirically proven? It's just, you just take them. So these are axiomatic thoughts that they're saying that is reason and rationale to rule the stuff out. But that's just people protecting a paradigm, right? They have a belief system that this stuff doesn't fit into. So they rule it out through rational thought and reason because it doesn't fit into their belief system. But your paradigm should be built off of your experience, not your experience ruled out because of your paradigm.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you can't prove ghosts aren't real either. They can just sit there and tell you, like, well, I know this and I know that. But I mean, when it comes to that, I mean, they can't prove. All they can do is try to debunk your experience, and a lot of them try to do that from the outside and not sit there. Like I saw someone not that long ago try to debunk my experience that I had on the Netflix show, and like, you know what? I mean, they didn't feature that whole thing on there, but I was there. Like I literally was explaining how I was hearing the song play in my head from the song that I wrote inside that house while I was filming that Netflix show. And I explained this on camera, and I actually have the audio. And to actually have right before I explained that I hear the chords that I was playing around the house that I planned to write for that woman's story when I went home. And then when I went back on that audio, right before you hear me explain that, she is intelligently humming the song. Not even just one part, 2 parts to the song. And when I put it to my guitar while I was there without any internet, but I was able to take the audio and put it on my laptop, she was singing and humming the parts that I came up with to the verse of the song in perfect key to my acoustic guitar. Like, dude, you cannot explain that. You know what I mean? Like, there's no freaking way. I mean, like,
that's why we lean on philosophy so much, because science measures and models the behaviors of nature. It doesn't tell you what nature is. So when somebody says ghosts aren't real, first, to define whether something's real or not, you have to have a concept of what reality actually is. If you think it's this physical 3D world out there that we're just taking in and our brain creates consciousness, then then you have a problem explaining paranormal stuff. But if you look at it differently, which we do through a philosophy attempts to define what reality is. Science tries to explain and model and predict it. It's different. So they can't tell you it's not real because they can't speak to it.
Right.
They can only come up with the answer of the amount of information that they actually have, and they don't have all the information.
No, they can only measure what they can perceive.
They don't have cliff notes to literally the universe. They only have what they have up until this point. They're constantly learning every single day. And scientists can admit there's at least 12 different dimensions around us at all times. They admit that. So why can't that be some sort of place where our energy actually, transitions to? I mean, they know that their energy never dies. We all know that. So you don't think energy's inside us? I mean, come on.
So going back to the documentary, I thought, and if you watch it, Ron had a really good soundbite about just all the different methods, from the ITC to the EVP to the spirit box, all of this stuff kind of correlating or backing up the evidence we were getting from the castle. He's like, it wasn't just one method, it was this method, this method, this method. So there's like 3-4 methods that actually backed up what we were saying about something coming from the castle. And I thought it was really well said what you said in that soundbite, and you really laid it out for people. It's like, hey, I mean, you can deny this if you want to, but when you got multiple ways of investigating, corroborating the evidence, then it kind of is what it is.
Yeah, it was undeniable. It was undeniable. Stuff was coming through from stuff you guys told us about from the castle that we weren't at beforehand.
Yeah.
And then it was coming through all the different methods that we were using. The similar things were coming through. That's a synchronicity repeated on a level that I can't even,
Yeah, because that's crazy. All the methods. Castle came out
so
through
many times.
all the methods that we used.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool.
And I don't know if you'll have to watch Demon Castle to kind of connect to what had actually happened there and what came to the Shanley Hotel. And even anybody out there, if you watch Shanley Hotel, watch the Demon Castle, because there's a very unique experience, that adventure that I went on. It even took me to the Delphi murder case, and that's just a whole nother animal. But when I was down in the basement and I decided to definitively religiously provoke whatever evil entity was in that castle, like right after I said, I command you in the name of Jesus Christ to like make a sign of your presence. I saw a pig face in my mind's eye, and then Eric behind me smells urine, and then we all heard this hiss noise like out of a snake, all in succession, all at the same time. And that to me was just like, all right, there's no doubt this thing is demonic. It is not human.
But then how about getting
that's what I'm getting to.
Yeah.
When we got to the Shanley Hotel, when Chris got scratched, and then the image of him with the pig nose on him after that, and that's connected to that. Then you have the experience of me up in the third floor talking about what's that pig face on Chris's face? What the hell is that? The snarl noise, the dogs freaking barking, and then all the castle stuff that was coming through. I mean, that's just mind blowing to me. I mean, it's just like there's no way that thing was there with us, and it was not happy.
Not for nothing, Sean, but follow you.
It was probably riding shotgun from the Demon Castle down to Shanley with Sean, riding right beside her.
Watching video, like, it astounded me because, like, Ron and Lourdes, when you guys are there, I have never heard the spirits cuss you guys out before, ever. And then Sean comes with extra baggage.
Yeah.
The spirits are cussing you guys out, and Lourdes is calling you a bitch, and I'm like,
I know.
What the hell is going on? This never happens.
I know, they never call me a bitch. They usually are nice to me.
We're talking about eating children, and I knew that's what was from Malefice, because that's that demon. Like it even said that demon's name from that case. I mean, it was starting to reference that crap too. I mean, there were some really nasty things. It was yelling and screaming, and it was saying "I hate you" to me like how many times?
Well, Lourdes, I was going to edit that out about it calling you a B and stuff, but I'm like,
I've been called worse actually. I've been called worse in other places. I've been called the N-word in other locations.
Yeah, she has.
Speaking of which, has anybody ever told you sound like Rosie Perez?
Oh my God, yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
Shut up.
I might have said that
once or twice,
200 times. Yeah.
But so anyway, but going back to the actual doc that we've put out, and Sean, this is where you were falling asleep. We were all falling asleep. But what about the bordello and some of those EVPs? And Stephanie, if you watched it, oh my gosh, those were like graphic EVPs, and it's like, how do you explain that?
That's all that happens there.
I know. It's like, how do you explain those voices come across that recorder? And I'm just talking about the EVPs. I'm not talking about the spirit box we're scanning.
Oh, I know. The bordello in the beginning of the EVPs, it was obviously saying.
I mean, oh my God.
Considering where we were too.
They're attracted to, especially men with hair. But for some reason,
tell me that, yeah.
Sean, because he doesn't have facial hair. I think it's because he sings, and Anna, I think, really, really likes his singing. And so, but I've had other men up there, even just through spirit boxes, had a guy with a really long beard, and I was thinking, this is going to be interesting to see how Anna reacts. I turned on the spirit box, and I'm setting up equipment, and the first thing I hear is a woman's voice say, "Lay on the bed naked." I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So just for clarification, that happens a lot, Stephanie, up there?
In the hotel that they're attracted to? Yes. Yeah.
Because the bordello is actually one of my favorite spots, because I'm a woman, but I get a lot of activity up there. As a matter of fact, the very first time I got touched was at the Shanley in Maddie's room. So I don't know if maybe I remind them of one of the ladies or something. I don't know what's up with that, but they're always nice to me. They're never, and I get a lot of activity there. When I do, sometimes Ron is still downstairs and I'll do EVPs. One time I did an EVP and I hear it said, good luck sleeping. I was like, it didn't even faze me because I didn't even see it as a bad thing. I was like, okay. And I went right to sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. That time she got touched, I was on the other side of the room packing stuff up, and she lay down in the bed. She was tired. She had her eyes closed. She's like, oh, cuddled up like this. And she feels his hand kind of caressing her hip. And she thinks, oh, how sweet I am. And I am, but it wasn't me. That's the point. And she looked up, and I was on the other side of the room.
And that's when I freaked. That's when I freaked out. I was like, I was like, oh my God, I just got touched.
So I'm not surprised with the bordello and what comes out of that area added to Sean Austin. that is a recipe for EVP if I've ever heard one.
So when you watch the documentary, if you actually watch that section, if you look at Sean pretty closely, he's actually fallen asleep a couple of times.
I was toast.
That was like 3 or 3:30 in the morning. We've been going the whole day.
I did an exorcism ritual. Like, you know how draining that is?
But not only that, we had been investigating the previous 2 or 3 days straight.
Great, yeah.
So,
yeah. We were dealing with some nasty stuff. Anna follows me everywhere. Actually, Kelly was on my live stream just earlier, and I was like, Kelly's like, she needs to get back to work to the hotel. And I'm like, Anna in the spirit box on. I'm like, she needs to get back to work. And she's like, I'm not ever going back.
That's funny.
And then she's like, I'm gonna slap you. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, did you hear the EVP yet on my Facebook page? Like, there's a woman saying, "Give me the blanket while I'm sleeping," and I know that's Anna. I know it's. Did you hear that one, Stephanie?
I didn't hear that one, but there was one that you had sent me, I think, a couple years ago, and it was just a random, like you're doing computer work or whatever, and it's a random woman's voice going, "Sean, sing me a song." I'm like, hey, Anna.
Yeah, she's asked me for a ring. I mean, she's proposed. It's hilarious, man. Like, everyone on my live streams knows who Anna is because she comes through. Like, I literally was in my apartment like a week or two ago, and I took an AI image of my bedroom, and there's a woman sleeping in the bed with her head up against the pillow. So then I sit down on the couch and I do an EVP. I'm like, all right, where's Anna? And she goes, I'm in bed. Right after that. I mean,
never get a live woman because Anna has already claimed that spot.
Yeah. Oh, totally. 100%. Yeah. Never a dull moment with that. Yeah. I definitely have some Anna responses that I've posted over the years. Like, she's sassy as hell.
And I'm like,
you know what I loved about the film too was I love that it showcased often the upgrades and the improvements and what's happened to the Shanley for over the years. Because Sean, you and I know, I think Lourdes, I don't know if she had seen it. I had gone there before when the former owner Sal had it. That seance room was a junk room.
Yeah, I saw
right?
that.
It was kindling wood and just piles of stuff and heat, air conditioning. Like, Kelly's done so much. The parking lot's paved. So I mean, to go there and not notice that would be to have anal glaucoma, which is mean your head is up your ass and you can't see yourself coming to reason with this. It's undeniable. She's done so much stuff to really to bring the place back, and it's so nice. Yeah. And I like that the film shows that it mentioned it.
She's done a great job. And Stephanie, quick question. Like, I'm just out of curiosity. Does Kelly have any plans of like the third floor ever doing anything with that, or is she just going to kind of leave that as is? Because to me, that seemed like the most active place for whatever reason. But I was just curious about.
There's no plans to do sort of renovations up there right now. We're trying just to, especially Kelly, obviously owning the place, trying just to keep the rest of it above. Yeah. And I've had people, it looks like Kelly hasn't done a thing to this place. And I'm like, yeah, you don't see the underworkings. You don't see, you're not looking at the roof, the new roof she had to put in, all the plumbing work, electrical work, the heat, all these things that regular people don't get to see that she has been working on just to be able to get as it is, and for us to have electricity and heat in this place.
Yeah, I love it.
We blew out a circuit once because we had to get a heater. It was freezing. Yeah. We blew the lights went out.
We went there.
The third floor is abandoned because you can go up to the third floor and next you kind of feel like you're in an abandoned building. Like, it just adds another characterization to this place that has many faces to its elements. So I love the fact that the third floor is abandoned because it's like you just walk. It's like you're walking into a different building, into the different areas of the hotel. The seance room is like its own thing. The bordello is its own thing. The gentleman's quarters, the morgue downstairs in the basement is its own thing. And then you got the third floor, and then you got just the bedrooms on the second. I feel like everything has its own standout features that draws you in, and so interesting at the same time.
It's from different eras. One of the questions I like to ask when I'm investigating is, who is your president? Because we've had Roosevelt, Hoover, had so many different presidents being named, and it gives me a good idea of what time frame that we're speaking to these particular spirits in, you know?
So one place that I wish we actually didn't investigate in the room down the really long hallway with the cool wallpaper where I think Miss Shanley's sister passed away when she was like giving birth.
Room?
Yeah, we didn't. I got that's where I interviewed Kelly and got the disembodied voice, and I got some B-roll and some shots in there, but we actually never went in there and investigated. And I wish we would have. Is that room an active room? Do people go in there and investigate a lot, or?
To be honest, the whole place is active. There's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
that's more active than another. It honestly depends on the guest energy and how the spirits are feeling that. You know, even when we get skeptics, love it when skeptics are there because we're like, you know, at least keep an open mind. But in particular, we had one gentleman that 100% skeptic, and he was outside of Esther's room, and I think he had a GoPro on his hat that he was recording and just kind of doing the same thing, just getting some footage of the hotel itself. And he described a hand like on the top of his back, shoving him into the door, and his GoPro went flying the other way. Now, he wrote down in one of the guest logs that he left there a 30% believer and was coming back. So,
Yeah.
in the moment, Esther actually took, you know, claim for that pushing, and we're like, oh, girl, you know.
Well, he would ruin his reputation if he became 100% believer. So, you know,
Well,
he had
that is one of the huge thorns in my side with a lot of the terminology and the way we phrase things in the field. We have to be spot on. When somebody says that all the paranormal is bullshit, that's not a skeptic. That's a believer. That's a belief system. That's a paradigm. A skeptic, by definition, looks for truth and absolution. The reason that the non-believers take that name is because societally and sociologically, it has more of a well-to-do connotation, well-read, educated, well-spoken. I'm the skeptic. You're not a skeptic. You're a believer. Just the people who believe everything's paranormal have already commandeered that term. So then they took skeptic. But by definition, the skeptic wants the truth. They want to examine over and over and over again, bounce it off their peers, find some kind of truth. That's it. So it's not...
We're all skeptics, us right here.
Yes.
Because we're not the one that believes everything is a ghost, and we're not the ones that believe nothing is a ghost. So we're the skeptics.
Yeah, skepticism is healthy.
Yeah.
I mean, ask Sean. I was a huge skeptic. I was a huge skeptic, like when I started filming the paranormal stuff. And to a degree, I still am. I mean, I'm a very practical
Well, I think there's a
person.
healthy skeptic, and I think that there's an unhealthy skeptic. I mean, like you said, they have to be open. But if someone's literally will not, like, they will refuse to be open to any sort of paranormal possibility or unexplained, that's only going to sit there. And also somebody that will condescend and talk down to people and like you're dumber than them because they have the answer and it's silly what you're doing. You know, that I have a real problem with that. Like, you know, we can agree to disagree with something, but obviously we take all this stuff seriously. But there are, you know, some people out there, I'm sure I don't know, people who do that. They're more of condescending and wanting to look down upon people, make fun of people for believing in something, rather than just being like, look, I don't believe in that, but here, let me see if I have an experience, you know, let show me what you guys do, rather than looking for, you know, again, like people like that are defense lawyers for the defense. They are looking for anything to make you look like you are not telling the truth. And that's the type of person, you know, or skeptic that I don't think is a healthy skeptic.
Yeah, well, so two things. One, somebody who condescends, that is a statement to their character, not to their role in society or what title that they assume. And I state what I said before, because by definition, this is not negotiable. This is by definition, a skeptic is open for the truth, and they want to know what the truth is. They are not wholeheartedly in and wholeheartedly out. They want to look at things objectively as possible and try to find out what the truth is. So when somebody says it's not real and they then talk down to you, that's not a skeptic by definition. That's like saying I'm a vegetarian who has hamburgers on weekends. No.
Or they just call themselves a cynic because they're more cynical than they would be skeptical.
Yes, that's more accurate.
But someone may call themselves a skeptic because they want people in the paranormal field to think that they're open to the suggestion.
Right. It's a ruse.
But it's total ruse.
One night, he was actually very pleasant, but I was insulted because I had him in the general quarters with quite a few other people. And he's like, I don't believe in this stuff. I said, okay, well, that's fine. I said, you pick a deck, pick a card out of the deck that we have that's in the gentleman's quarters for them to play poker with. So he shuffled, he grabbed the card. I said, don't show it to any of us. You show it to the spirit and don't tell us what it is. Let the ghosts pick it out. And I hear he's a cop, and they love to call him a cop every single time. And he goes, yeah, I actually am a retired police officer, but I'll be more impressed if you tell me what my other was. And you hear a female voice that's medical, and he goes, I am also retired. And then I said, well, show them your card. And you hear 9, and then somebody else said clubs. And he looks at it and he goes, it's a 9 of clubs. And we go out into the great room, and I thought, okay, that was really impressive for the night, but he goes, well, you put on a pretty good show. And I'm like,
Yep.
Literally nothing.
She knows what I'm saying. I tell people when somebody are that closed, I say this all the time. It's in at least 3 of my books. Bigfoot could hand them their car keys and they wouldn't believe in them.
Yeah. It's so funny because I have a friend too that literally was the trigger of me getting to the paranormal. He is so closed off. Like I literally joke all the time. Like if he levitated off the floor, he would probably think that he hallucinated and took acid and someone put acid in his drink and had to send himself to the hospital. That's how closed-minded he would be. But I would love to see skeptics sit in like the darkest, most messed up places for like a week straight and just sit there and use our equipment and see what happens to them, because eventually something will try to get to these people. But
they'll deny it at all costs. And I think what Billy said about his entry, his foray into filmmaking with this stuff, I think is true for all of us. We learn early on that our mission is not to recruit like a cult. We're not trying to get people on board. You have experiences that brought you where you are, and those are real experiences. And again, hallucination is a conscious experience. It does not deny that you had an experience. And experience is all we can know. So when you have that, you don't need, people who are on board will have, it's a profound, meaningful thing for people too. And we've been inculcated into physicalist science our whole lives, that there's this 3D world out there and none of this stuff happens. It's not real. And then you show them evidence of it and they won't accept it because it's not supposed to be real. So science is not what's on the table. The paradigm is. That's what's being threatened. Because there's no evidence of 12 different dimensions. There's no evidence of that every time you make a decision, another you pops into existence in another dimension and makes another decision. They can't test that. There's no empirical data to support it. And that's kind of like one of the ways that science tries to not have to explain stuff. It's a back door. Because if you have a theory that allows for everything, you have a theory that explains nothing.
Yeah. But then, technically speaking, like John or I were to get a specific vision of somebody and describe them to a T, how is somebody going to sit there and say that that's a hallucination? If it's something we've never met. But, for instance, I had a spirit and she had this big funny hat and she's got like birds and feathers and she's going like this, bobbing her head because the feathers and the bird are bobbing and she thinks it's funny. And I start laughing and I'm describing this woman and this, oh my God, that's my crazy aunt. She's like, she always like that. How would you say that's a hallucination when it's somebody I don't know she does?
It's an accurate depiction that came out of a hallucination, which even makes it harder for them to debunk. It doesn't make their case. I know the Shanley has an event coming up with Richard Michella, who's a spirit artist, and then Lee Morrison from Full Moon Paranormal. And I've seen Richard sketch people at an event. He just sketches and we'll hold them up. And people go, and they know who it is. It's someone who passed on.
Pull out pictures, and it's like
pulling out the picture.
He's never met them before. Yeah, they match the pictures. You can't make that stuff up. The level of accuracy and something like that goes scientific stats and numbers and chance odds, and it flies in the face of all that. It's absurd. It's not coherent to say that doesn't hold up.
And another thing too, like if you remember the gentleman James Randi, who would always have his $1 million challenge to prove anyone you can prove your psychic abilities. And another factual thing here is that we know that if you try to use your spiritual gifts for the sake of materialistic prizes in life, it's not going to work because it's supposed to help others. So it's completely, negated if you're trying to get money from something. And that's probably
You can't tell them that, and that's it was funny because we had a discussion about something similar to this recently. You can't tell them that because they'll look at that as goes, you're backing out, you're being a coward and pulling out because you're making up some excuse that you can't prove, and maybe you can't prove it. But the thing is, that the money is a ruse too. It's a complete red herring. It's put there to get you to come forward. And let's say you prove, and I've seen you do stuff, I've seen Stephanie do stuff that some of the mediums we work with. You'll do something that defies reason that they can't explain. That's phenomenal. And they'll still tell you you didn't meet the burden of proof. The bar will always move so that you don't hit it. So the money is just something to draw you in. To
Like
go,
you're playing a poker game, but the house always wins.
Yes. What did I say?
Yeah.
That's what it is.
And we've had horrible, not even skeptics, but just, downright non-believers that were totally horrible to a bad thing. Just like I posted on my TikTok a while back, it's not my job to prove my ability to you or anybody else. I know what I see, I know what I get, and as long as I get that message across to the person that it's supposed to go to,
Right.
Yeah.
That's the bait with the money with those Amazing Randy things, is because if you take the agreement and you take the chance to make the money, you're giving them credibility that you don't really want to give them. And so then when they shoot you down because you didn't measure up, even if you did, but they don't say that you did, you can't, at that point, you're sour grapes. You can't say anything because you already given them credibility because you took the challenge. You went to them to prove it to
It's
them.
like giving attention to a troll.
Yeah.
It is.
So what y'all are talking about, not trying to go down a rabbit hole, but have y'all ever heard the where Jackie Gleason back in like the 60s was like the biggest UFO skeptic, and he offered like $1 million or something if somebody could prove to him a UFO, and he was friends with either Eisenhower or Richard Nixon.
Yeah.
There's a book called Gleason. I haven't read it yet.
I listened to a podcast about that, and it was fascinating because it's like Jackie Gleason was challenging everybody on UFOs, and then apparently they were out in California, and Nixon, they came and grabbed Gleason in the middle of the night, took him to wherever and showed him something, and Gleason never talked about UFOs after that.
He was in Florida. They sent the copter to pick him up. They brought him
Yeah.
to space, supposedly. Right. He saw something that he couldn't believe. He wasn't issuing the challenge because he didn't believe in it. He just really wanted to see proof of it. And supposedly that was part of the money and the cover-up stuff that had to do with Nixon's whole thing. That he did this for him because he needed the money for hush money. Whatever.
That's part of that podcast. So that when y'all said that about the other guy,
Paranormal, famous person, because I went to one of his museums with all of his items. It was really fascinating. Who was obsessed with was Houdini.
Houdini
obsessed with the paranormal, and he was also obsessed with
I didn't know that.
out who were the charlatans. And he would go around, I believe, with his wife to all these people, and they all had a code word that they wanted the psychics to come up with to prove that they were real. And when I was at the museums, we got the code word. The word was believe. So I thought that was pretty interesting too, because we investigated one of his museums, all of his items there. But he was obsessed with.
I watched that series on Houdini a few years ago where Adrian Brody played him, and they never mentioned anything about him in the paranormal.
Oh yeah, he was going around. He was going around because since he was a magician, so there was a lot of fakes out there, and he made it his. He would go and
trying to connect with his mother.
Yeah, he was trying to connect with his mother.
Yeah.
But then, because he believed and he was trying to connect with his mother, but then he would catch these people faking stuff. So he made it his life. Like, he was really into it.
I think it was Arthur C. Clarke and him had a good friendship, and it fell apart because they had different beliefs on the paranormal and stuff. And he did, from what I understand, I don't remember, he did, I think, get caught framing one specific medium. Because there were mediums that were very credible, but when they were in positions where it was working for a high official or there was, big monetary gain, some of them did get caught faking stuff. So, which took all the credibility away. So he did, I can't remember who it was, but there was a story that he got caught framing one of them as being a fake who wasn't. But he was fascinated with it.
The museum with somebody too, because I know about the code. Because he even told his wife, when I die, if I say this word, you're going to know for sure that it's me. So, but even during his times, it was not the norm to talk about ghosts. If we're talking about ghosts, you were totally off your rocker and probably didn't be in a cat itself.
Yeah.
So
That was why it wouldn't be documentaries and stuff of his life, because it was such a taboo for him today.
So do we know if his wife ever heard that word, or
She never did.
No.
She never
They
did.
They did an annual thing for 10 years. Actually, it was Sir Arthur Conan Doyle who was friends with him, and their beliefs in the paranormal and the occult stuff is what part of their friendship. But no, they did something every year, I think, for 10 years, and after the 10th year, she gave up.
But we got his name. We got his
We
name.
got his name with a ghost box. I was upstairs in a room here one time doing it, and I said, and she walks in the middle of me running the ghost box, and I said,
We had visited his grave, by the way.
Yes, Anthony Seminelli from Seekers Club of the Paranormal in Queens took us to the actual gravesite
of
where he's
Houdini.
buried. Yeah, it's in Queens, New York.
And then we got his name.
So she walks in the room, and the box is running. And I went, who just came into the room? And I'm expecting, and then for the pareidolia people out there who you hear what you want to hear, this was not what I wanted to hear. When she walked in, the voice goes, Houdini.
It was so clear.
So I used to have a client that I used to have to fly to Wisconsin that I did video work for several years ago, and I used to have to fly into Appleton, Wisconsin, and the first time I went there, it said home of Harry Houdini, and Harry Houdini's not even his real name. I can't remember what his real name is.
Oh yeah, he had changed.
Yeah, he did change his name, but it said home of Harry Houdini, and I'm like in Appleton, Wisconsin, like in the middle of nowhere, cornfields and this, and I'm like, what? Harry Houdini came from this place in Appleton, Wisconsin.
Isn't it white or something?
I don't remember.
I can't remember what his real name was.
I knew it. I can't remember. I'm lucky that I know mine. I mean, that's why it's written below here so that I don't forget.
Wasn't it close to Houdini? But no,
Eric Wise.
Eric Wise. That's right.
Wise.
I couldn't get the first name. Yeah.
Yeah. But he got it from somebody that it was like and then he added the I.
Yes.
I forgot what the story is.
It was derivative of a previous illusionist or magician's name or something. Yeah.
Well, all in all, I think everyone needs to go check out the Shanley Hotel. I know there's a lot of people that have messaged me because they've actually been to the Shanley Hotel. And I could see how that is too for me, because back in the days, if I'd been to a location and there was something on TV about it, I'm like, oh my God, I've been to that place. I want to see what they got.
Yeah.
And I've got a lot of messages from people that they're really excited to check it out. So please go check it out. Go to scarenetwork.tv, download the apps, Roku, Fire Stick, Apple iOS, Droid TV, or just mirror it from your TV or watch from the website. And see literally all the evidence that we captured. I mean, it's almost 2 hours of documentaries, and it never gets old because it continues, and we go in depth with the history. And I
was going to mention, Kelly told this really detailed story about her husband. We were talking about skeptics and stuff earlier about him, kind of not being a believer, and then when he was remodeling, I guess, the seance room, and a lot of stuff happened. And if I would have actually added that to the documentary, it'd probably been another 10, 12 minutes. I was just like,
that is one of my favorite stories of hers. It's the three weeks later, drinks later story.
Yeah. It was a long story. It was very good. I wish I could have condensed it and put it in there.
Well, I can for you now if you want.
Yeah, no, tell us, since we didn't actually include it in the doc.
So basically, they're working on the hotel. She's upstairs doing something. He's in the seance room, and he's got like a saw or something working on it. And she hears him yelling for her. She's thinking, oh, my God, he cut an arm off. So she comes there to see what happened. And he's acting like nothing's going on. She's like, what is it? What's going on? And he says, nothing. And she's like, well, okay, then, whatever. And goes back to doing whatever she's doing. She says 3 weeks later, they were in Atlantic City, and 3 drinks in, he says, you remember that day that I called you down to the seance room? She's like, yeah. And he's like, well, I saw a woman. And I hit him across the shoulder like, you didn't tell me. She's like, how come I get a full-bodied apparition and he gets to see one? So
because he was messing around with that seance room. They're like, what are you doing?
Yeah, he should get huge credit for the work he did in that place.
Oh, he's done so much. She's got a long honey-do list for that poor man.
But just like y'all mentioned, Ron, the seance room where you said it was a junk room when Sal owned it, and the way it looks now, and I'm sure it's even improved since, because we were there towards the end of June of last year. I'm sure it's improved even more. I was really impressed with that. It looks really good.
It does. It's beautiful. Yeah.
Compared to what it looked like before, oh my God, it's
Yeah.
amazing. All the junk was there. Yeah. And she did a wonderful thing, and her husband, which I always forget his first name. I'm sorry. What's his first name?
Steve.
Steve.
Yeah.
Steve. I don't even think I knew that even from the interview.
It's like we'll hear sometimes, you know, oh, Steve's home, and we hear his footsteps. Well, yeah, Steve is home, like telling us that he's home, but he does not like to know that they said his name for any reason.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, to add on to what Sean mentioned, yeah, go to scarenetwork.tv. We got the apps. Just in the last year, we've really been trying to improve the platform and offer it to people with advertisements, so people can enjoy some of our content with ads. This is a premium thing. It's an original, and it took so long to put together. So for the next couple of weeks, the only way to watch it is to subscribe $4.99 a month. Cancel anytime. But we have the apps out on Roku and Apple iOS and Android TV. Apple TV's coming, Android phones coming, and others are coming. But I said it before, Stephanie, and pass along to Kelly that I'm super appreciative. I definitely want to go back up there and do a second part and maybe stay a few more days, because I mean, going back to what we were talking about, coming right off of that castle. I mean, Sean, what if we went up there fresh? And we were winded and tired when we went up there. So if we went up there fresh, then I don't know how much more we can get than what we got, but
it's different all the time, honestly.
Yeah. I know.
So there's plenty more they can show you or say or do or whatever,
I know, and I'm grateful for the experiences that we experienced just in that short amount of time we were there. And I'm always, when I leave a location like that, I'm a perfectionist as far as a filmmaker and a storyteller is concerned. And anytime I leave a location, I'm always really hard on myself, because I'm like, gosh, is this going to be good enough to actually turn into a story or a cohesive documentary that makes sense and that entertains people and presents evidence for people to actually think about. And so I was pleasantly surprised. The reason I say it's pleasantly surprised, because I go back to the castle, because we expended so much energy at that castle before we went to Shanley. And then Shanley, I still try to give 100% everywhere we go, no matter if I am tired or not. But I was like, man, is this going to be good? Because I expect a lot out of myself and what I put out there. So yeah, once I finished everything and sat back and was able to watch it, I was very, very happy.
You did an excellent job.
Thank you. And all you guys, the interviews that you gave makes my job easier, because it really, I can plug that in there, cover you up with some shots of the hotel and some pictures and stuff. And it really adds a lot to it. So I'm, again, just sincere gratitude for you guys being a part of it and allowing us to come in and do it. So I hope everybody checks it out. And
you did it. And I told you, I got emotional at the very end of it, because Kelly talking about how, she's still renovating and how period or that part breaks my heart, because I love this hotel so incredibly much. I love the spirits. Just like she said, they have become family. They absolutely have. And we love each and every single one of them. Right after the series, still love him too. It's become like an extra home for some of us, and it's a beautiful place. It's great for beginners, but it's also great for people that have been doing this for a long time. And we welcome people that from all over the place. We hope everybody has a great time. We don't ever guarantee activity.
Of course. Well, that's
feel like home when they come in.
And you guys, Sean, doing something like the Shanley and other locations, my goal and my hope to profile something like that is that it will intrigue the interest of others to actually want to go there and investigate and spend time there and help that specific location up its notoriety a little bit more. So that's what I hope for Kelly, that she can continue to have people come in, which in turn allows her to continue to improve on the things at the actual physical location and stuff. So for I hope that indirectly it kind of helps the Shanley out a little bit with what we have done.
Yes, you did an amazing job from all the different shots of the hotel inside and out. I was actually really, really amazed because they look beautiful. Like you did the hotel justice. It
Yeah.
looks the filming itself, you know, and the evidence and everything. It was amazing, and I really appreciate being a part of this thing that you guys are doing here. It was
As
beautiful.
are we. We're very proud to be a part of this.
Same sentiment. Same sentiment too. Yeah, this whole show has been focused on us and what we do and our thoughts about theories and all this kind of stuff. But you are an incredibly talented filmmaker.
Oh,
the producers, you and Sean did a fantastic job with this film. It's really good.
Yeah, I mean, without Sean, I would have obviously never, not heard of the location, but never made it come to fruition, because he's talked about the Shanley for years since we started Scare Network a few years ago. He keeps mentioning the Shanley, and I've heard about it, and then we finally actually took the bull by the horns and went up there and made it happen. And
without Sean, there would be a major deficit in EVPs.
I know this guy gets no good EVPs. Sean, we're at this graveyard like a month ago, and I swear we're out in the woods, and we got the clearest EVP I've ever heard. I mean, it gives me goosebumps, and nothing that I've been doing for the last 3 years in paranormal locations gives me goosebumps. But tell them about that, Sean.
Yeah, no, I mean, we slept in a tent overnight in an old 1800s cemetery in the middle of the woods in North Carolina, and it's just, we were out there in the woods, where there's supposed to be some like hidden like graves, and I forget what it said, but it was clear as could be. It was just really unsettling. Freaky. Something was messing with us. I mean, it was like straight up clear.
And it wasn't like what it said wasn't really freaky, but the clarity in it was.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And it's like this is like 2:00 in the morning in the woods, no other noise out there, and this clear woman's voice comes across.
Yeah.
So yeah, to Ron to say that Sean gets EVPs and evidence is an understatement.
Yeah, to say the Atlantic Ocean is wet.
I mean, listen, I have to cut. You can ask Sean. I cut probably 30-40% of the stuff out that we actually get. It doesn't even make it, because then our documentary, instead of 2 hours, be 4 hours long. And I challenge him on about everything. I'm like, did you really hear this? Because I don't hear it, and then I'll cut it out if it's not, in my opinion, if it's, and then some stuff. No, right. I hear it. So I present it out there. So.
Well, thank you guys. I got to tap out my batteries. I didn't plug in my laptop, so it's just literally about to tap out here because I was running around. Thank you guys all. It was nice chatting with you guys. I look forward to everyone checking out the Shanley Hotel documentary. Please let us know if you have any issues trying to watch, or just let us know what you think in general, because we're really excited for everyone to watch what we put together.
Yeah, and somebody said, can we watch the documentary after tomorrow night? Yeah, it's out now. It's out on, if you go to scarenetwork.tv or download one of the apps and you subscribe, $4.99 a month, cancel anytime. You can watch the full thing, along with all of our other movies and
yeah, I mean, if you pay the $4.99 for the month, it's like renting one title, but then you can watch all of the stuff the entire month, and cancel any time. So, I've been a part of already a dozen documentaries on there, so we've had a lot of crazy adventures, and we even have more stuff coming out from some of the places we've been to. So we're going to continuously putting stuff out there for you guys to watch. So definitely hook in and keep your eyes out for more stuff coming through.
Yeah. So thank you, Ron and Lourdes and Stephanie, and tell Kelly and everyone else we said thank you again too. We're super appreciative, and everybody check it out and let us know what you think about it. It'd be great. All right.